afternoon, students. It's Mr. Sargent here with your Day 63 recap video for ELA and for Science. Now, in ELA today, we're going to start off by talking about one of our vocabulary words of the week, and that is describe. We're going to be looking at words that we use every day to describe things, and they're called adjectives. After that, we're going to be reading a story about the inventor of potato chips and trying to figure out the author's purpose, or the reason why the writer wrote what they wrote. It's a lot of rotes. All right. In science today, we're going to be conducting a lab in which we study aerodynamics. We're going to be building our own paper airplanes. We're going to be testing them out. We're going to be seeing which designs fly better. All right. We're also going to be working through the laws of motion and seeing if they apply to, well, our paper airplanes. So sit back and stay tuned. So let's start off today's lesson with the word describe. It's one of our key vocabulary words this week. Now, the word describe is to give details about something, to create sort of a mental picture with words. All right, so we use the part of speech called adjective. Now, adjectives are built to describe. Take, for instance, the picture behind me. This is a sunrise. Well, no kidding, but it doesn't really help us out. If I'm describing it to somebody not watching this video, it'd be a little difficult to share just how beautiful this sunrise is. So we can use words like, this early morning, beautiful sunrise made the sky look like it's on fire with red and orange colors. Well, that's a lot of words there, but you get the idea. Using adjectives like red and orange and the different colors, as well as telling when it's going to happen, like early morning and things like that, it builds a better connection and a description with just what we're trying to say. So let's take a look at the picture behind me now. Okay, well, this is nice. Not nice is an adjective. How would you describe this? Okay, you'd use words like this beautiful sandy beach, or the beautiful blue sky, or, the cloudless sky, and the bright sun showered the beach with heat. Well, that's a little bit more descriptive, isn't it? So when an author uses adjectives to describe, what they do is they try to use these words to create a picture in your brain. So the activity that I gave you this morning, and if you didn't get a chance to finish it, go ahead and finish it. The link is below in the description. Asks you to just come up with one or two adjectives that help describe the different things. Like, for instance, let's take a look at number one, a blank dog. We could just say a dog, couldn't we? But that really doesn't describe it. What words could we put in there? Okay, we could put a color of a dog. How about how it feels? Is it a fluffy dog? Well, it could be fluffy, couldn't it? All right, so think of some words that you could put in there and just go ahead and put it in. Take a look at number two. She has a blank hat. Well, it's up to you to describe the hat. It could be a color, it could be a style, it could be just how it feels. Pretty much what we want to do in all of these questions and all of these problems is just add an adjective, and I cannot wait to see your answers. Now, after we finished our morning activity, we talked about potato chips. Ladies and gentlemen, you know my weaknesses. I love zebra cakes, I love donuts, but potato chips are right up there on the list as well. It's hard to eat just one, isn't it? I don't think anybody ever could just eat one chip. They're just so good and salty and tasty, and there's so many flavors. Okay, enough adjectives. We're done describing chips. Now, what we're going to be doing right now is reading a story about George Crumb, the inventor of the potato chip. Now, as we read, I want you thinking about, why did the writer write this story? All right, so let's go ahead and read it now. George Crumb, inventor. Now, if you also look in the top corner, you'll see that this is a history article. That's the genre, which means this is a true story. okay, by Otto Klein. Paragraph 1. You may love crunchy, salty potato chips, but do you know who first made them? A man named George Crumb did in 1853. He invented them by accident. Crumb was a cook who made delicious French fries, but one day a man complained. He said the fries were too thick. Crumb made the fries thinner, but the fussy man still wasn't happy. So Crumb made the fries so thin and crunchy that the man couldn't eat them with his fork. Instead of being angry, the man loved them. Other people who tried Crumb's treats also loved them. A few years later, George Crumb opened his own restaurant. A big basket of potato chips was placed on every table. In 1895, the first potato chip factory was built. Now people could buy potato chips at the store and put them on their own tables. Now, after we worked on our chart. Now, our chart here has 3 questions that we want to answer. What is the topic of the passage? What does the author tell about the topic? And why did the author write this passage? Which is ultimately, that is our goal this week, is to find out why the author wrote these things. So, what is the topic of this passage? Very good, George Crumb, and how he invented potato chips. What does the author tell about the topic? Well, if we go back in the story, we know that the author tells us how they were created. And if you remember, they were created by accident. Yes, there's a fussy customer. Now, fussy is a great adjective to describe the customer. Now, this customer was difficult. If you've ever seen someone at a restaurant or someone even at your own kitchen table is like, I don't want to eat this. Yeah, that's fussy, guys. All right. Now, why did the author write this passage? Well, very good. I could hear you guys saying it. They wanted to teach us about the invention that is potato chips, all right, and how it got invented, all right? So go ahead and fill out this chart, and we're going to practice these charts a little bit more because pretty soon you're going to be doing them on your own, and I cannot wait to see just what you can do. Now, in science today, we studied aerodynamics, and it is I again, Dr. Doubt, here to ruin your experiment. Now, I already know that this class doesn't know how to do this. I will be victorious today. Yeah, he's back. He looks healthy after last week's accidents with the laws of motion. But it's okay because, ladies and gentlemen, you already know aerodynamics. If you watched the video yesterday or paid attention in class yesterday, you already know that aerodynamics is the study of flight. All right. Now, also, if you watched yesterday's video, you know that there are 4 forces that act on a airplane when it is flying. We have lift, gravity, thrust, and what is it? Drag. Very good. Now, if you need more of a review, I've already sent you some notes in the Google Classroom, but I'm also going to put those notes in the description below if you want to read more about aerodynamics. Now, as we know, when we create a plane, or in today's lab, we're going to be creating an airplane, a paper airplane, we need to use those forces in order to have our airplane fly. So let's go head over to the lab and get ready. So we are now in Mr. Sargent Superstar's 2nd grade lab, and we're going to test aerodynamics. But first, let's identify the forces again. Now, if you notice, I have my plane here. I don't know how well you guys can see it. A little bit better than my drawing yesterday, I do have to admit. Now, when we talk about a plane, it has 4 forces that act on it, okay? We have a force that's pulling it down. We have a force that's slowing it down from the front. But we also have forces that push it and, well, lift it. And that's our first one, isn't it? It is lift, okay? When we talk about lift, we talk about how the plane gets in the air. Now, when we're talking about aerodynamics, we're also talking about the opposites. So what's the opposite of lift? Very good. It's everything that brings down something to earth. That is the force of gravity. All right. All right. Now, in the same respect, we need our planes to go forward, don't we? So the force that we need to be using to go forward is called, no, it's not called patience. It is called thrust. All right. When you push a plane forward, or when any plane goes forward, it has a bit of thrust, usually caused by the engines. All right. But we want it to be able to slow down, don't we? All right. That's where the opposite force comes in, and that is called drag. So when we have a balance of these forces, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be able to have something that is being able to fly in the air. All right. We have gravity pulling it down, so it's not always in the air. We have lift, that's the ability to actually get in the air. We have thrust, the ability to go forward, and we have drag, the ability to slow down. So before we do our lab today, you already know, I gotta get in the right gear. Boom, there we go. All right.
My goodness, there he goes again with that magic stuff. I'm gonna try it again. Let's see. Oh my goodness, what is happening?
Ladies and gentlemen, today our focus is going to be, can we show the four forces that act on a plane? You know, all experiments start with that question. All right. So our question, can we design a plane that shows the four forces that act on a plane and help us explain aerodynamics a little bit better? Our hypothesis is yes, but it may be a struggle, especially if you've never built an airplane before. All right. If you've never built a paper airplane, it's going to take, well, if you look at our materials, all we need are paper and this one, patience.
Oh my goodness, it's too hard for you to do this. I don't think you can do it at all. Well, maybe you can, but
Don't listen to him, ladies and gentlemen. I know you can do it. I believe in each and every one of you. Now, I could, in our design today, in our experiment, come up with a series of different designs for airplanes, but I want to test something a little bit different. So instead of the designs, what I want us to take a look at is the materials. Now, already this week we focused on Law 1 and Law 3 of the laws of motion. Today, I want to focus on Law 2 when we're talking about aerodynamics, and that is, the heavier something is, the harder it is to move. Or, in the same respect, the harder it is to stop. So, the materials that I have for our experiment today, I have 4 different pieces of paper. I have a normal piece of copy paper. I have a piece of construction paper, which is a little heavier than the regular paper. I have a note card, which is very light and small. And I have a big piece of paper. Now, what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, today is we're going to make 4 paper airplanes of the same design. And there's a reason for that. This is what we call our variable. All right. We don't want to choose different designs that may or may not be better than the other, because what we're doing today is we're testing Law 2, aren't we? We're testing, does weight have an effect on our planes? So let's go ahead and make these planes. Now, if you've never made these airplanes before, watch what I do, but you can also do research online of how to make a paper airplane. Now, this does take patience and it takes time. So I'm probably going to speed this up to show you how it goes.
I don't think any of those planes are going to fly. Gravity will always win. There's no way those will fly.
So now we have our 4 planes with different masses. All right, and if you remember Law 2, Force equals mass times acceleration. So the bigger something is, the harder it is to move, and in the same respect, the harder it is to stop. So we're gonna go by size. I have my mini note card. I have my normal copy paper. I have my construction paper that has a little bit more of a mass. And I have my big monster of a plane right here. All right, now I'm gonna ask you to make some hypotheses of your own. Which one will fly the furthest? Which one will fly the straightest? Which one will stay in the air the longest? Now, after looking at these different designs, we need to think, okay, which plane is gonna show us the four forces the most? Now, remember with aerodynamics, it's about balance. We need to find the balance in between all of the four forces. So, now that you have your prediction, let's go ahead and test it.
So we've moved class to a much bigger room today. We are now currently in the multi-purpose room, and we're gonna test to see which one of our planes flies the furthest. So we have our planes here. Let's start with the smallest of the planes. Flew pretty straight. Let's see if that's gonna be the furthest one. Next, we have our normal plane, just using regular copy paper. Interesting. Definitely some more glide there. Next, we have our construction paper plane. Now, the mass is a little bit more here, so let's see if that changes anything. Ooh, interesting. And finally, we have the big plane of science. And I gotta fix it a little bit before we fly. Make sure everything is done. Now, the difference is I cannot throw this with just one hand though. I have to use two hands. 'Cause look what happens when, well, I might be able to try one hand. So here we go. Let's see if this works. Oh, interesting. So let's go get a closer look. So as we walk to our planes, we see a few things. One, they all went about the same, except we have the small plane that went further than the planes with more mass. But the plane that worked the best was our normal paper plane. So what did our results find? Well, Lot 2 is actually correct, isn't it? Force equals mass times acceleration. The heavier something is, the more force it's going to take to move it, isn't it? I think if I use two hands and threw it a little harder, I think the bigger plane might have flown a little bit better. But if you notice, the plane that had the most balance between weight, between the wings, between lift, thrust, drag, and gravity was our first normal plane using regular copy paper. I think it had a great balance of the force. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you were able to do this as well. If you need ideas of how to design your airplanes, definitely research different airplane designs because different planes fly differently. All right? I look forward to seeing what creations you make and seeing how they fly. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great rest of the day. And until I see you tomorrow, have a great night.